Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Drunken Tarrasque.
Where Mike's dice are always bipolar. Always.
Always. Today we're going to talk about how to handle a D&D breakup, or the implosion of a group.
But before we do that, on the advice of somebody on Twitter, we'll tell you a little bit about what we do here. The short version is we want to make sure that you get the best out of your game, try and give you tips and tricks, try and help you, and if we do a little bit of that at all, we've done our job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, this episode is focusing on what happens when your game starts to honestly fall apart, be it during or more after you realize this game is over. And one big thing, all good things must come to an end. Don't worry about this. Mm-hmm. This happens. Just for me alone, I've gone through several games that have started and stopped. I've also walked away from several games that have been what I would have called completely and utterly toxic and whatnot. And that is kind of one of the bigger things just to be careful with, is that this type of thing happens and there's nothing to worry about.
The important thing to remember is that these things do happen. A lot of games do not end up reaching the end of the campaign, and it's usually for about one of three major reasons that I can give you probably offhand. One is that the DM is either not being engaging or has a very clear thought process in mind behind what they want, and they're kind of not letting their players really do much. They're not really making it a game. It's just kind of a story that the DM wants to tell. Or the players are doing something that is kind of throwing a monkey wrench into everything. It's kind of a give and take, or the people aren't showing up.
Because here's the thing. Life happens, times change, some people grow apart, some people don't have the time, and that's a natural occurrence that does happen with D&D, and that's kind of one of the facets that we'll talk about, but not the biggest. We're talking about more of I would make the joke, the apocalyptic ones that kind of happened.
Yeah, and there are ways to handle folks who are perhaps on an erratic schedule. There are ways of handling that, if you're willing to work around it, I think. But sometimes these things do happen. I mean, I could probably give you an example or two of games I've been in where basically things started up, there had been a couple of sessions, we suddenly get a new player in, and then they get flaky. Or something like that. Now,
when your group does fall apart, don't lay blame on people, but here's something you're going to have to realize. You got to have to think out. As a DM, as a player, who or what caused it? That is going to be one of the bigger things you're going to have to find out. And this is not like you start poking and prodding, but you start reviewing what you've done, remembering what you've done, and look through it and gone, as a DM, I've gone, I didn't engage the players right. I didn't actually think on this character, this person really wanted this story arc, and I stood in their way every step of the way to give it to them. Or, as a player, that I was confrontational with the DM on multiple occasions. Or simply that anytime you wanted to play as a player, that fellow party members or the DM just completely shut you down. These are legitimate things to figure out where it came from, because this will help you if you want to create a new group, and to kind of look out for signs so you don't kind of get the same stress you get at the end of the game when you see the group falling apart.
And there are warning signs, but the important thing to always remember is that you are probably playing with your friends. Mm-hmm. And some friends are great for playing with, and some folks, for whatever reason,
they're just good as friends.
Yeah, and not as folks to play with. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe things come out of their personality that just you didn't anticipate on. It's hard to know, because this is a game, and you are offered the the possibility of doing a lot of things that you normally wouldn't do in real life or could do in real life, and sometimes when not everybody can handle that, some people become murder hobos.
Yeah, some people, and this is very one of the importance why Session Zero social contracts are one of the bigger things to kind of iron out a lot of the major problems. That's why at the end of the game, when our game fell apart, I began thinking, where did I fail? Was it me? Was it my fellow players? And I went down just kind of looking at all the game, and there's not one universal checklist, but as we noted, if you heard us before, it's like, it's more of people becoming flaky, confrontational, pushing people to the side. You don't want that to happen, and when you start realizing, like, most games fall apart, it's a little bit of both sides, but it will lean one way or the other. And when that hits, when you realize, okay, it's this type of player, this type of mentality that you just don't play well with, or this person's a murder hobo and everyone wants to be a role player, if you see that, you go, okay, now I know what the problem is, which moves into one of my other parts is, what is salvageable? Which, this may sound really cold, but I can guarantee you played the game, you had fun some part in it, and you want to do it again. So you start looking at, what can I salvage from this game? There's two ways to look at it. And I kind of take it, the players and the material. And this is one of the bigger things to look at.
Yeah, some things are just never going to be salvageable. Sometimes a group doesn't know how to work with each other, and part of this does go back to what we were talking about in Session Zero, in our podcast on Session Zero before all this. Figuring out what you really want to get out of the game really helps this. But if you don't do that, sometimes people can just they have different ideas in mind. You might have the idea in mind that you want to be able to get to the end of the campaign, while they're thinking they just kind of want to put a sword through somebody's head, and somebody else just kind of wants to go exploring. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult to know.
Yeah, and each game is different. Each time it happens, it's different. And essentially, one of the biggest things that I've seen a lot of players and DMs forget, and what causes this breakup, is that they do not look at this like what it is, a multiplayer game. This is essentially 4, 5, 6, 8 people coming together with each distinctive different personalities, attitudes, and mindsets, and there will be conflict, and you gotta kind of understand that some personalities, certain playstyles will not work together. And you start looking, and this is how I look at it, when you have certain players personally who are very confrontational when they don't get their way, who actually start threatening fellow players in DMs, it's one of those things, as I said, you find what's salvageable. If you find out this guy is very aggressive or confrontational, and he's a personal friend, you kind of point out, like, guys, I still want to do this game. I still want to DM, but I don't feel comfortable with Yojimbo over there. He's very violent. He's very aggressive when he doesn't get his way. I would still love to play, guys, but I don't want to play with him because he's very much makes the table almost a dead zone to play in. And this is one of the other things. Like, you actually have to talk to people if this is playing with friends or even acquaintances, because some people have no problem with that. Other people will have a problem with that. That's kind of what killed some games. And that's one of the first things is I consider, it's called, who is a physical player is what can you bring to your next game, if it's a player problem.
And sometimes it's a DM problem. I've had DMs like this. I can give you a perfect example, and I'll do it as quickly and concisely as possible. He was doing a homebrew game, and he had dreamed up this universe, but it wasn't particularly interesting, and he had a very clear goal in mind, and there wasn't really room for anybody to roleplay, just kind of to kill things. And he had a story there, but he didn't want to give you the opportunity to go wandering around too much. It was way too linear.
Yeah,
that was the only game. That was the only game that was actually finished, but it finished with all of us dying.
Yeah, as Rachel said, the DM is also at fault. I've been in those games where the DM is an unsalvageable, very unpolite person to be with. I'll be very nice in putting this because there's a lot more colorful language I can use. And that and this is one of the other failings of a failing of a DM, they want to make a story, not a campaign for their players. And that's kind of one of the bigger hints. If a DM says, I have this story I'm going to do, be a little hesitant. And it's one of the things I've noticed, that when a DM says they want to do a specific story, they will railroad and almost universally push players who try to uniquely think of solutions right out the window. On a side note, why I don't like Adventurers League is this type of mindset is very much encouraged and really causes a lot of people to get burnt out. Though, here's the good news. What is salvageable as a DM and a player? Just about everything. Your notes, your character growth, how you've learned as a player. I can tell you this, every failed game you have, all those notes, a lot of them can be recycled. Some of the stuff is like you find out you put the wrong style of trap in there. You'll start realizing, hey, this trap doesn't work whatsoever. I pitch it, or you postpone it and go, maybe I can rework on it. Your notes is going, as a DM and as a player, is going to be the most salvageable thing. And as a DM, steal the player's characters for NPCs in your other games. It will make it so much easier. This is one of the things to salvage a lot from. Shh, DM tip.
Oh gosh. But the reason why we're really talking about this is that, this is... ultimately, this is a game, and it should always be fun, and you shouldn't let a crappy DM or crappy players or people not being punctual or just group dynamics get in the way between you and being able to have a good time. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you might just have to leave. You might just have to say, maybe this isn't the group for me, maybe this isn't the right DM for me, or, maybe I need to try online or in person, whatever works for you.
And I can guarantee you this, leaving the group, as much as you may stress out at it, this is the apocalyptic nuclear option of downright leaving the game. As a DM, do not just leave and disappearing. Guys, I can't do this DMing, this is too much stress for me, I can't do these games anymore, I'm going to end the campaign. That will broke discussion, but if you fundamentally don't see them changing, or if this is just placating you because they just want a DM, just say, no thank you guys, please don't make me do this. This has been stressful and no fun for me. As a player, you can tell the DM I'm not going to be playing anymore, it's no longer fun, it's been too much of a hassle, and if you really have the ungodly, harassing, jerky DMs, which I have had, who harass and harangue you online, Skype, Twitter, just downright leave and disappear. There is no harm in that for yourself, as much as I don't like saying just drift off, just disappear, because there are some really bad DMs out there, and I've had the unfortunate luck of being with them, and yes, dropping off the face of the earth is okay. It's not really what you should do, but when you have a really jerky DM, it's an okay thing to do. And it's essentially, I've had that worst case scenario. I've literally had the worst case, so it's like, yeah, I understand as a DM, just tell me you're going to drop out, because I try to be the nice DM, and Rachel can vouch for me, and a lot of other ones go, oh my god.
He tries to be the nice DM, but deep down, he's got a dark black heart.
I have a dark black heart when you start acting like a jerk, but I'm like, it's not as a player, it's more like if you start acting like a jerk to your fellow players, just because you think...
darkness, wrapped in mystery.
But yeah, it's essentially the apocalyptic thing, and don't worry about this. Don't freak out like, oh my god, I'll never play D&D or Rogue Trader again.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to make you laugh.
No, it's okay, but it's like...
This is a depressing topic a little bit.
It's a depressing topic, but here's the thing. It happens, guys. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as you learn from it, smile about it, and realize this is a learning experience, and that just because this one game ends doesn't mean another one won't begin, because there's a guy I know, Brandon, a very good friend of mine, who's essentially, he's been playing for 20, 30 years, and he says, yeah, he started and stopped playing role-playing because some people don't do it. You may have some time, and I would always suggest, if you do this and you go the apocalyptic route, I make the joke of like, yeah, I'm done for a while. Take notes, think on your characters, think on things. Don't just let it lie. Like, I don't mean like get right back away writing into it, but take a little break, take a little breather, let yourself calm down from it, and then think, okay, what can I do better on this next character? Oh, this looks like a cool idea. And if there's any friends who like talking about roleplay or character development, talk with them, because it will build ideas of how do you build a better character and encourage a group to foster and grow together to actually be another role-playing group.
And this is not to say that you shouldn't try and avoid the nuclear option, and that you shouldn't try and talk to folks and work this out if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You should absolutely, definitely try to do that. I mean, if you notice that your DM is completely miserable, they're not really having fun, you're not having fun, you're mentally checking out of the game, you're like, screw this, I'm going to play something else in the background. I'm going to mess around with my phone.
Mm-hmm.
If you're at that point, it's time to have a conversation, either the DM or your other players.
That's actually the biggest thing, is dialogue and communication between players and DM is one of the most foundational things to make sure your game does not just die off. Because so much so, that's kind of what causes some of these problems, but it comes down to when a DM or player blatantly just says, hell no. That's the time where that's why I'm looking at the nuclear option, because for a couple years now, having DMs that ignore you, later on coming out, they openly admit, yeah, I cut you off role-playing and just didn't care about it. Like, there are DMs like that, and those you do get rid of, because they're like a toxic, hostile, abusive relationship, and the best thing is to get rid of it, because you will be happier in the long term, and you'll probably find something better later on down the road, however long that may be.
Yeah, it's always good to try and work things out. But if you're dealing like with the DM or with players, like Mike is describing here, it's best to just cut your losses and move on to another game. Okay. And right now there are so many options out there available for you. If you can't find something in your hometown, do hit up your local comic book store. Do hit up Roll20 and try and find things. It might take a little while, but you might find that you're pleasantly surprised.
Oh, yeah. And have no problem. Take your time, guys. Enjoy it. You're going to have 2017 Starfinder's going to come out. You do have... downside is Fantasy Flight lost the rights to Warhammer, so I'm a little bit disappointed, but L5R with Fantasy Flight looks like maybe coming out 2017, 2018, so you do have some good games coming out on the horizon.
Yeah, things are looking up.
Yeah, from all of us at the Drunken Tarrasque, happy gaming, and may the dice rolls always be critical successes.
May they forever be in your favor.
Bye, guys.